Good evening, Ben. Thank you very much for joining me. So, so those who are going to listen to this or watch this, or however we decide to put it out, I think we're going to go listen for now. This is digital dirty talk. I think it's the way we put it at the moment. We're missing a third element to make this faz, which hopefully we'll come on to in another episode of this, if we're successful at this, of course. This is all about, really, Ben and I have been working together for God knows how many years. Every time we have a conversation, something sparks. There's something around our digital ecosystem that we collaborate on, and one of us has a holy shit moment and goes, what? Hello, we've just come up with an idea. And you know, sometimes we action them, sometimes we don't, but it gives us a fuel for thought. And that's what digital's about, very much about fuel for thought. We think about our users, we think about what we can do for them, about the customer. So I spoke to Ben a good number of weeks, and in fact, probably months ago about doing this, to be fair, Ben. I can't actually remember how long ago we talked about it. But,
at least 4 weeks.
But, you know, we thought, well, why not? Why not sit here? Now, we're meant to have a third wheel to this, but he's a little bit busy. He's unpacking boxes. Now, what did he say the other day? He was doing something with brickwork, unpacking boxes, and I think he basically couldn't be asked, if you want the honest truth, and that's fair enough. That's a Wednesday evening stuck with me and Ben. I mean, I'm sure he's got better things to do. I reckon he's probably clipping his toenails, preparing himself for the weekend. Well, he's preparing himself pre-lockdown. Nice bit. I think he's going through a Pusa pink nail polish. Just wonder what he might come up with next. He's an eccentric creative. He goes by the name of J-Lo. Those of you who know Ben and I or know our industry, you might have come across J-Lo before. He will rename. If you don't, he'll remain anonymous until such a point he decides to make a showing upon and grace us with his presence. But evening, Ben. How you doing?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. And how's the magical world? So let's just get some of the niceties out of the way. Motorsport's been crap this year, isn't it, really? Because we haven't been able to do much of it. Rugby's been crapped upon. We couldn't really care less for football.
Nope.
But actually, interestingly enough, 2020, as terrible a year as it has been for so many of us, and the challenges it's thrown up for so many people, one of the industries that really has done well is digital. And it's a little bit scary for me, I think, just how well it's done. What are your thoughts on that, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at those pure digital businesses, I mean, some people, hate Amazon and others that are kind of pure digital business. They think they're price undercutting and things like that. But you can't argue with, if we just look at a UK household name, ASOS or ASOS, I don't actually know how to say it. They've done incredibly well. You just need to look at their share price. They were at kind of 1,100 pence back in April, and they're now trading at 4,400 as of today, 25th of November. And you look at others and that have fallen by the wayside. So people like Laura Ashley. You might look at Primark. Primark came out with saying that they lost 800 million in the COVID lockdowns.
Wow.
So I think it has done pretty well for the winners. I think there's been a lot of losers, and the way I've been describing this to people is that it's accelerated the kind of the slow adopters of digital. So it might have taken 10 years for people to have demised, and that's a horrible thing to say. But those that haven't embraced digital, those that have continued to invest in real estate businesses, but I think COVID has accelerated that by 10 years. So it's meant those businesses that would have previously kind of been loss-making for the next 10 years overall and eventually shut down, it's happened very, very quickly, because we've seen, in 3 months, businesses that previously might have been turning over, I don't know, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million quid a year, have all of a sudden had 3 months of zero trading.
True.
Or Primark.
We haven't rehearsed any of this, right? We have this just as the people aware, right? We have this little sort of, should we go this way, should go the other way, right? And just so people know, we can have a script all we like. I think we've never probably stuck to a script. Our conversations go completely left field and pear-shaped, right? But interestingly enough, this is absolutely no bullshit, right? Ben, look at this. I'm about to put on screen. Here we go. So the global market this year is expected to grow by that much, 33.22%. It is crazy. Now, this came out today. This was where did I get this from? Some user experience place. I was, my morning Google alerts. If you don't have Google alerts, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, please get Google alerts. Do some, magic do. It's two things. It could be really annoying if you don't want emails every 35, 40 minutes, or set it up properly, like I haven't, and you get nuggets of information. So that is a fact for this year: 33.22% rise. I mean, that's obscene. I mean, Tescos are a testament to that. Here you go. Here's another fun fact for you that is prepared but not scripted. Abercrombie and Fitch. They've had a massive drop in net sales, but actually 43% rise on their digital sales. I mean, that in itself tells a huge story for me, I think.
So, I mean, it's funny because we work with a client who I'm not going to name, and their sales went up tenfold between March and April.
Yeah.
Now, that's just online, right? So the rest of the business might have gone down, and that might have only represented 10% of all sales. So it might have gotten up tenfold, but the losses that they've made elsewhere, it hasn't recovered. But just on that 1 month, absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it is frightening. But do you think that these companies now, either the early adopters or the ones who are now coming to the game and starting to prosper, do you think they're doing it right? It's a big question for you, because you would turn around and say every time, absolutely bloody not, because you can tell them a whole wealth of information as much as I can, or if JLo was here, he would say the same. In fact, he would have so much opinion, it'd actually be rather worrying. Me and you wouldn't speak again for this whole conversation. We'd just be listening. But to be fair, what if you were to pick three things that some of the current leaders in this area, barring the likes of your ASOS, that's how you say it, by the way, ASOS, your Amazons and your John Lewis's, what are the three sort of, I'd say, key things that they're potentially not doing well enough that's hindering them a little bit?
So I think I think one of it's a cultural thing outside of those businesses. So the cultural thing of, let's walk into the boardroom, and for those businesses where sales represent less than online sales, represent less than 50% of all sales, right?
Right.
How many of the boardroom board directors fundamentally know everything there is about digital? Because if that number is, let's say there's 10 board directors and there's only one of them that does, and online sales only represent 10%, is only probably going to ever be 10%. Because if 10% of your directors understand it, flip that to ASOS or someone like that, probably every single board director understands it.
Yeah,
Let's have a conversation and ask questions like, what's your cost per acquisition, and what's your average order value? What's the time between purchases? What's your what's the average price point from a Facebook customer versus an Instagram customer? What's the most popular product that people are buying from email? What's your average lifetime value of your online customers? What's your bounce rate? What's your conversion rate? What's your sessions between transaction? What's the impact of wish lists on sales, right? So you could probably ask those questions of a digital business, and they'll probably know 90% of that and have the answers in their head.
Well, otherwise they've got someone like you to help them with that.
Maybe
a slight self-promotion here. But actually, what you've just done there is
in the corner.
But just to be very honest here, right? What Ben has just said there, for those who are listening, I mean, you will have to rewind, replay, write them down. If you're sort of in the junior element of your career in digital or retail, anything like that, that's the ones you write down, and that's the ones you go and you find out about. You go and replay them to your bosses once you found out about them, and you keep track on them. These are just some of You know, this is why we we do what we do, and we're basically, you know, Ben's just giving away gold dust there to the younger generation who have got to who've got to stand in the stead of digital. So thank you, Ben, very much for that. I should make sure my sons watch this shortly and you know, outdo me. But you are absolutely right. I think that you've got the entertainment of the boardrooms who, you know, will be looking at just how much is coming in and how much is coming in from shops and how much is coming in from online, but not actually really knowing how much online is making and where the influences are. So you do hit on a point there where people, I think, are really struggling to embrace what online truly means and how much it is actually making them in the real terms. So if you think about it, you know, in many cases, your operational costs online over the longer term investment are just so low. It's bloody pathetic. It starts getting crazy. If you're an early adopter, if you're an ASOS, for example, or, you know, probably even look at someone like Majestic Wines, actually. You know, bearing in mind, obviously, glasses in hand. Majestic Wines, I mean, I was lucky enough to be part of the build for that in 2008 when they were really just embarking on their e-commerce journey. They're set up. Now, it's just a fact here, if no one knew this, but during the COVID period, alcohol consumption at home went massively up. Yeah, I can testament to that. But people like Laithwaite's, Majestic Wines, all that sort of calamity around alcohol, they were already set. Their operational models were there. The way they deliver is there. Their investment was almost like teed up for this, for COVID. You know, 12 years on, now they're not just, you know, set up and doing wonderfully. They're set up, doing wonderfully, and making a crap ton of money out of it because operationally they didn't have anything to pay out for at the last minute. So I think that's something as an interesting story. Those who are, you know, not or weren't online until much later in the game properly, they're paying the price and they'll start returning their investment probably a little bit later on. But interesting facts around, you know, what this is there. So one of the other things for me, and this is where I think, you know, this is where I sit, but obviously where JLo sits as well, is the user experience around stuff. And that has a massive impact on them, what you interact with from the data side. So how, from a brand's perspective, customers are engaged by the brand and then how they re-engage with the brand. So as you mentioned there, where are people coming from socially? Is it direct? Is it email? And it's been a really weird year because I don't think there's been as much spend on marketing as we might have thought that could have happened. It could have gone up. There could have been some real winners and losers in that fight. But it's been a lot of organic this year, I feel. Would that be a right thing to say?
I think it's shifted. I think there's been a few businesses that have said, no, we're not doing our big above the line advertising, you know, TV or radio. And I think they've shifted some of their spend elsewhere because, you know, they haven't got shops to drive customers to, or they haven't got airplanes for customers to sit in. I think the shift has changed.
Right. And where do you feel that will continue in that route going forwards now that brands are established? Everyone is using online more. Do you think it will go backwards at any point?
I can't see it.
I'm asking you to rub your crystal balls here, mate, and see if you can give me a prediction.
No, I think some of these brands, I mean, it's going to be really tricky. I think, you know, I still believe in the fact that most of your budget needs to go on brand building from a marketing perspective, but how people do that might change. So it doesn't mean that it's the death of the brand. I think the brand is still absolutely, you know, that recognition, that recollection, whatever you want to call it, saliency, I think is still there. But I think the shift in the medium will change. Yes. We've seen a massive decline in print, haven't we? And I'm wondering, you know, what does that look like long term? I think traditional media will still be there, but maybe not in the guise that we know it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, print has started to obviously decline. I mean, even I subscribe to a newspaper through my tablet. My gosh, you know, though it's a farce, right? I'm trying to be slightly educated, of course. You know, it's just all fake and phony. I just want to say I can do it, you know. But yeah, the whole idea of it is you know, print disappearing, spend the mediums becoming different. It's an interesting one. But I'm also not massively convinced either now as to the continued growth or reach. Now, this is probably a bit of a, you'll educate me, on social media platforms like Facebook, or possibly even going towards Instagram. I think, I was speaking to obviously some of the younger generation. I'm stuck with them, of course. I have my two youths who live with me, but Facebook is like an old person's tool according to them. It's not it's not where the hip kids are happening, and Snapchat is where it is, and things like that. But do you think that continued growth of do you think it will continue to grow at the rate it has done using social media platforms in the mainstream to help brands sell online and become more affiliated with their users?
So it's a really interesting one. So I think so Snapchat has seen some colossal growth recently. I mean, like monstrous. Based on actual data. So I think that's really funny when you kind of quote them to some aspects. So I think, yes, I think some of the platforms like that will continue to go. I think there'll be new ones as well. So I think, all of this stuff is to be decided. That said, I think of the social platforms, right? So of the ones that we know about. So just to give you an idea, what I mean by that is Snapchat has gone from around, this is in 2 years. So from when we look at what they were worth in 2018, December 2018, they were worth $6.5 billion market capitalization. I'm not saying this is profit or anything else. Today, as of today, they're worth 67 billion.
Oh my god!
In that time,
why the
that resurgence has happened in the last, not a very long time, in the last like 3 months. So it's kind of, they were at around 40-ish billion around September.
Wow. So that would tell me two things. We are really not as smart as we might hope we are, because we didn't come up with Snapchat, right? So I'm now proper pissed about that. Okay, just think about the money that we could have made there. But in the grand scheme of things, that's an interesting one, because you don't get growth like that without people spending money on your platform. So that's surely got to be.
I mean, that's market cap, so it doesn't necessarily mean they're spending money. Just it's kind of, maybe it's the audience size or the opportunity. But do you know what the other hidden one is, right? So, and this is what I love quoting this one.
Please don't tell me it's Twitter, because I don't believe you if it's Twitter.
No, it's not actually at all. So there's quite a lot of hype about Snapchat and some of the others, like we've been talking about.
You're about to say TikTok.
No. So let's just put this into perspective. Okay, so this is 2019 revenue. So obviously I've done a marketing capitalization from now, but just looking at revenue. Okay.
Well, for who?
Pop quiz. Who made more money in 2019? Snapchat or Twitter? Revenue I'm talking about.
Twitter.
So Twitter did 3.5 billion.
Yeah.
And Snapchat did 1.7.
Yes. 1.3.
So who is the ugly duckling that everyone ridicules and said is shit in digital, that no one even gives two shits worth about?
Well, I'd say Facebook, but I don't know.
Bing. So Bing did 7.6 billion in 2019.
Are you on about the Microsoft thing?
Yep.
Right. Okay. So,
so you go. So everyone looks at them and goes, Bing, like, right. What's that shit?
Yeah. I'm with you on that. Right. So basically, now from that comment, you've just committed to another episode, because I would love to know where on God's green holy earth that is coming from. Which countries is that coming from? That can't be. Is that Europe? Is it not? Is it the States? Is it India? Is it? I mean, that's a complete mind-boggling shocker.
Yeah.
Bing.
It's crazy.
I mean, we all know Google's just basically, rules the earth, and I think it's a fight between Google and Tesla who's going to be ruling the world. Tesla, probably, to be fair. He's the second richest man in the world. He's Elmer Muskie. He just saw that today. Yeah, whoopity whoop. Yet they don't create as many cars as Toyota. Strange, but interesting one. But I tell you what, an interesting rise of all this, of course, with this COVID situation, everyone going digital, is the fact that, you know, though we've done it for bloody years, lots of people are at home now. How do you think that's working for people?
Oh, it's a real mixed bag. I think it's about having the space, and it's not always that easy. So I think there are mates of mine that are in cities all over the place, and they're stepping over one another, and I think they're finding it really hard. I think there's us living in the middle of nowhere.
In our castles, of course.
I'm in a shed.
Hang on. Let's just be very clear at this, right? If that's a shed, it's an exceptionally well decorated shed with lovely artwork and no children running around. So you are in a proper man cave.
Exactly, but it's two ways. So number one, I can work and get on with stuff and not get disturbed or hear what I'm doing and things like that. But also for my family, they're not having to step on eggshells and, oh, we can't be loud because, you know, daddy's on the phone and this, that, and the other. So I think it's a two-way thing. So, and I think it's super stressful for people. I mean, for me, I think the adjustment has been quite small because with Brexit, and I hate to say no one's talking about it, but it was really bloody hard last year, and we were struggling to get work, and people weren't interested in investing because they didn't know the outcome. And I ended up working from home most of last year, going into London every now and again, but most of last year was working from home. So the switch has been quite small. But I think for lots of people, going from living in, let's just say, central London to having a 15-minute walk to work, not taking the tube, or maybe taking the tube like 20 minutes and then a nice walk, to not going outside, living with whoever it is, your partner, maybe with kids in a 1 or 2 bedroom flat, and you're taking the second bedroom, or perching on the edge of a couch with your laptop on your knee, balancing a book in your left knee, and then you've got a cup of tea in your hand and then a phone under your ear while you're trying to talk to someone. I mean, it's just crazy.
Being on Zoom at the same time as well, and trying to use Microsoft Teams to send messages. Absolutely no way you're out there with that one. That's absolutely fine.
Exactly. I think it's a little bit polarized. I think there's some people that love it, some people that hate it. So the fear of missing out and the love of missing out. I think there's a fear of working from home and love of working from home. I literally think it is like that.
Yeah, I'm slightly on the fence here, because I think as a creative, right? I mean, I thrive on being around others who I can steal ideas from, bounce ideas off, you know, do all that sort of that collaboration. But in the delivery mode and in the sort of product ownership mode, and that's, you know, probably what my resolve does, it starts getting tougher being in an office. So being at home and in that isolation is actually quite powerful because I get a hell of a lot done. But it's still, you know, I think it's now the fear of, oh, bloody hell, there's a meeting and pinging up on my Outlook. Say, can I not go to it? Is there some excuse like, you know, damn, I've got to open the front door to let the cat in or something? Or I don't know, just I've got to go and pick up the leaves that are on the driveway. Some way of getting out because you don't want to be disturbed. You get into a mode. Interesting enough, though, I mean, there's a couple of topics here, but I'm going to bring up one that's I don't know if it's been bugging me, or if it's I don't know, got my attention for wanting for further detail, right? So on screen, this chap here is a guy called Chris Hurd, Scotsman, I believe. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn as much as everyone, and Ben, you know, as you know, I plug things and I'm as active as I can be and try and get a lot of traction through LinkedIn. It's a great platform, social platform for obviously businesses and moving in a different direction now to what it used to be. Chris started First Base, which I think is, you know, the idea of it is sort of a service that sets up people from home. So they rent all the equipment and all this sort of stuff, and their business model is around setting people up remotely. Okay, and it's a good idea. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen. So
Yep.
this is Chris's profile. If you go to Chris's business, it's about, you know, it's first base. It's about setting up and provisioning people from working from home. Chris is very, very active. He's super enthusiastic about what he does. I mean, congratulations to him for setting up a business. And he says in his profile, they fell upon this at a time where, you know, they really didn't expect to, I think. But what bugs me, I think, is some of the facts that Chris is trying to push. 90% of people want to work from home. You know, if you're not remote first in a short period of time, your business is going to go bust and you're not going to work. Some big statements with very limited backup. Now, I don't disagree with him in wholeheartedness. I do think there is a need for and a want now for businesses to try and go remote certain percentage of the time. But I also actually think there's a winner in this, and this crafty old bugger called Maurice Lévy, who happens to be part of the WeWork sort of situation. So I'm in a bit of a mix here. You know, who is to blame for COVID, right? Some might say the Chinese, some might say Donald Trump. I'm starting to sway between Maurice Lévy, right? Now, I've had the luxury of meeting Maurice Lévy, right? But Maurice Lévy, you know, he's a very powerful man in France, right? I mean, I could get assassinated for talking like this. But it's a bit weird how Maurice Lévy decided to retire from Publicis, hand over to Arthur Suden, great replacement for him, you know, sees the hands of Publicis in a good way. Maurice then takes on this advisory role at WeWork. About 18 months ago, all of a sudden COVID happens. So actually what happens is Maurice Lévy, the marketing genius that he is, has orchestrated the revival, the solid foundation of WeWork through COVID. And I think he might be the one who actually came up with the idea.
Maybe that's the best campaign idea he's ever had.
It might be. But do you know what? I just generally, you know, think about how, is that true? Could it be true? Don't know. You know, Donald Trump wants to blame the Chinese. I personally want to blame Donald Trump, actually. I mean, but I'm actually now down to the point where I think it might be Maurice Lévy. And if it is, then that is generally the best marketing campaign, the best rebuild of a business. Because WeWork was on its way down.
Oh, yeah.
And it was falling at a rate of knots faster than, you know, me trying to, you know, do snowboarding or something, you know. Which, just for the record, I'm relatively good at, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a fat bloke on a snowboard. But, though James Hill, my dear best friend, will probably say otherwise. But I do think that it's an interesting time for companies like WeWork, shared office spaces. There's been a few that have popped up and gone away very quickly because obviously it's hard. I don't know what that landscape's going to look like now. I think it's going to have a very steady hand in the marketplace, but I'm not sure it's going to grow as fast as it could have done. What about your thoughts on that, mate?
Yeah, I think it's going to change actually the way we use and consume offices. Actually, so I think there's a whole. I'm not 100% sure, but so we work with a company called Flexi Offices. Yep. So shout out to Michael Dubicki from Flexi, and I think interestingly they traditionally had a let's go and so they're an office broker, so they'll go and find you office space that you need. But interesting, I think the way I see it changing is people will still want to meet up. People will still want office space, but they won't want permanent office space with fixed floor space. So they might go and say, I want an area for my team to drop in and out. So-and-so can use it on a Monday. So-and-so can use it on a Tuesday. Isn't used on a Wednesday. And they'll still pay for the week, but they don't need a massive office space. So what they're doing is they're using the space in a configurable way so that if they've got a client meeting, they can use a room, or if they've got a management meeting, they can use the room, or then they can get together and meet up and do some creative work together. So I think it's going to change the way the market will work. It'll be good actually to speak to Michael, actually ask him what he says.
All right, add him on the list. In fact, I mean, maybe adding on that list, and maybe it's one of the things that we bring up about how people can work going forward in one of our other episodes, and just see what he thinks and how that might change the industry for what we do in digital, and then potentially others as well. Interesting you raised that. I mean, Eon's creative team in Berlin have had a WeWork space for quite some time. They didn't want to be a part of the big offices in Berlin or in Essen, because they need that space to step away and do their thing, their magic, the Eon magic. And from that, I think they've had that WeWork space. They can figure out how they want. They're actually expanding it now to include the the Energy teams from next year. So an interesting time for those companies who have the shared office spaces. So I think really have got an opportunity to grow with it and make it work for them. I feel though the one element that could let them down, especially as more, I suppose, these remote office spaces pop up for people to work in, is potentially infrastructure that sits around them in the smaller cities or towns that really is going to be quite detrimental. As I think some of the people who are working from home have found that to be quite a challenging time as well. But it does bring me on to one of the things that is in our little list of things to talk about, and that is the massive losers from this whole COVID situation. And if you're looking at the list, I'm going to call it out anyway, and it is education. Now, why are we talking about education on dirty digital talk? Well, it's quite simple. I mean, it affects everybody, and as you just rightly said when we were talking about working from home, having that extra space is a massive benefit for the family. Not just yourself. But interestingly, through this whole COVID period, education seems to be the digital fucking loser. And I'm sorry, but I'm quite categorically, I'm pissed off as a father who has two sons in college who are going in for like 12 hours a week, and the teachers, are not being supported in this digital era. Some of these teachers are, they're from the Stone Age. They're mathematics teachers who don't know what a computer is. The calculator is the height of all innovation to them. And even still, they're swearing about it because it shouldn't be used. You should do everything in your head and a bit of paper, that funny graph paper. But how do you feel education has responded in this digital time? Do you share an opinion? How could they have done it better?
It's a really hard one, I think. Lots of those organisations or institutions are quite slow to move at the best of times. Yummy. So I think shout out to people that are trying to change things, like Ian Harper from Side Business School, who heads up digital there. And I think it's forced lots of these educational bodies to do stuff. So I think now all schools have to have provision for remote learning. That is mandated now. That they have to do that. But it still doesn't mean that they have they can do it, but it doesn't mean that it's a particularly good experience.
The interesting
thing I think
is
it's really hard, because what is your different? It comes, but then it changes the whole subject of what's your differentiator if you're paying for education.
That's true. That's really true. I mean, the interesting thing you say about that, I mean, and hat off to Ian. But Microsoft have been very supportive in this period of time as well. Remarkably enough, Mr. Bill Gates has done really well. They've basically given away for peanuts and nothing to education authorities the Microsoft Teams suites to students to be able to work. That's an amazing thing. But unfortunately, what the good old education, secretary and all the rest of those funny folk in flat feeted, I don't know, whatever, the bloody idiots in Westminster, whilst they've done really well in supporting those who have had to go through furlough and the country in that essence, and trying to look after the elderly folk under this period of time, they have completely fucking neglected education and teachers, more importantly, who, again, those who are not digitally minded, have really suffered. As I'm probably going to get shot by any teacher that walk past the street, but the age-old saying is those who can't teach. And but those who are in teaching don't have a need to go to the levels of digital experience that the industry has. But the government have neglected that, and I feel like they've been let down, and from in turn of that, kids have been let down from that education purpose. I don't know if you are aware, but I mean, as soon as this is all, this whole lockdown in March got kicked in, every school in the world, because they didn't, or any world in the UK, as many of them they could that didn't have infrastructure, jumped straight into Google and Google Classrooms, Google Hangouts, Google, all these sorts of things that they just, bless them, it was teachers literally Googling how to do it, and they got Google Hangouts. So I think there's one thing that I certainly feel that as an industry, Ben, we should be doing more. I think I'd love to go into the boys' college and help the teachers get over their hump of how to use this stuff. But then you're stuck by the fact of you need a DBS, you have to speak to these people, you have to go through the chains of bureaucracy. Jesus fucking Christ, someone wants to help you, let them help you. But I think that's the biggest failing at this whole COVID situation. I think, the winners have obviously been the online retailers, the fun parts of that, but the losers, the biggest losers, I think, from a digital perspective, has been education.
Well, travel as well, but that's not happening, is it?
From a digital perspective, but yeah, I mean, travel you have to physically be on, but I mean, it's education from a kid's point of view. Travel's a business. Travel has to make money. Education has to teach. I don't want to bore you. Just yawn, Ben. Just do it. Just yawn. But I mean, I think digital is that education is the one that doesn't get anything for what it does. So it's a bit fearful. So I mean, I suppose when we talk about, we're on our list now. We said we'd do about 30 minutes. We're into 37. Sod it. I mean, we're having a good conversation. I like it. But I mean, the takeaways from this, I think one for me is if you're listening to this and you want the golden nuggets of, if you're a junior sort of person in a digital sphere and want to go and shake the boardroom up, rewind this back to probably about sort of 6 to 12 minutes. Listen to the nuggets that Ben chucked away for free, I might note. And let's just be very clear. Ben doesn't do shit all for free. And rightly so, right? We've been in this business long enough to be able to know who to look after and when to. And Ben's just given that whole thing away. And rightly so, because I think it's that we're in a period where helping people is a big thing. I think those nuggets of how to look after yourselves within the digital environment, how to build your business, is knowing your data. And if you don't know your data and you need to know more, then Ben is the one you need to talk to, quite frankly, because he'll start educating you. So we get, not only do we solve the problems of how to understand your customer, but Ben is also an educator. And there you go, you can be educated at the same time. So Ben is a teacher that does. So from that aspect, I think the takeaway here is knowing your data to be able to help your customers grow. And I think that's a big element there. But I mean, I think the other takeaway is that we've been sadly let down by, or the education system has been sadly let down by the lack of support in this COVID situation. So anything to add, Ben?
No, I think the working from home thing was interesting. I think people think it's always work from home or never work from home. And I think there's not black and white. I think there's shades of grey. So I think in looking at those stats from earlier, I think 90% of people could benefit from working from home. Yeah, maybe 1 day a week, maybe 2 days a week, depends on the person, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think it definitely will change. I think it will get into a sphere of probably people working at home if they can, a couple of days a week in minutes. But the interesting one, here you go, working from home is now going to throw a massive spanner in the works for every single planning permission of new builds in the UK. Da, 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 da. Hi, you didn't think of that one, did you, Skinny Boy? I did. Yes, one result I thought of, Ben didn't. It's absolutely right. So every new build that's going on at the moment, all the plans that are in permission at the moment, all those architects that spend so much time in building the shoebox-sized houses that everyone wants to purchase at cheap prices, are now going to have to be massively rethought because people are going to want the ability to work from home. And a shoebox size room, 6x6, i.e. a prison cell, is probably not going to cut it, ladies and gentlemen. So are we going to see the return of the cellar? Are we going to see the return of building everything in your loft? Are we going to go from the new style 3-story houses to a 4-story house? let's stay tuned to the architects and see what they come up with next. The crazy brave, or is everyone basically going to have a garage and turn it into an office room, and your cars will, are never going to see a garage? Just don't know. Just don't know. Or is everyone going to have a really big garden shed?
That's the way forward.
I like the idea, though. There was a guy on Sky a few years ago who built a proper man cave underground. I wonder if we can start doing them. Have you never seen that? I'm so sending you a link later.
I have seen there's the YouTube video of a guy that's built it all and he dug it all out. The
innovation guy who basically dug a massive hole in his, he put ventilation in there. It was a proper man cave. So are there going to be office caves? Because we can't say it's a man cave, it's an office cave. But then it starts worrying me that we might all of a sudden start seeing a rise in the whole 50 Shades of Grey thing.
Yeah.
Office interactions might become a little bit more different. Yeah. Oh well, working from home, you still have to probably worry about someone trying to come onto me and they'll be in a sexual assault or something. Oh, I'm going to get sexually assaulted if I have my own office underground. Have to worry about things like that. So if J-Lo came round, I'd be worried. Who am I going to report it to? Where's the HR? That's it. Tell your pet goldfish, and the pet goldfish just does nothing. But all of the craziness. I mean, those of you who have listened in for the last sort of 40 odd minutes and listened to us ramble on about the differences in digital and whatnot. This is the first live show that we've done, and give us some feedback via email. So I'll put the link in the description. Email me back. Drop a comment, anything you want really, just to sort of interact with us. Let us know what you think. We sort of planning to do a few more of these if we get some good feedback. If you all think we're twats and should shut up and bugger off, then practically we will. But if it's just a bit of fun, a bit of use, then you're sitting bored on a train or a tube and you're listening to us go talk about the industry, then drop us a comment, let us know. And if you've got anything that you want to discuss with us, then reach out and we'll go from there. In the meantime, Ben, remember, don't turn your camera off yet. I'm going to say goodbye. I'm pressing finish.
I'm writing down what you said. That's something really good.
But in the meantime, thank you to everyone for joining us who's listened in. And Ben, thank you very much for joining me on an evening. I mean, lovely Wednesday night and having a bit of fun.
Thank you, mate.
And,
loved it, Mark.
And
as always,
put your comments in the below.